Tell me if you have ever been the recipient of this kind of email. Probably says something like partnership update, and in the email, your customer basically says that they really enjoyed working with you and they like the team and they think you're really great, but after some long soul searching and painful discussions, they've decided not to keep working with you, but they wish you all the best and good luck in the future. If you've ever been the recipient of this kind of email, I want you to open up your chat here in Zoom. Open up the chat, and in the chat, put the emoji that you felt when you got this kind of email. Put the emoji that you felt when the last time you got this kind of email from a customer. And, oh, by the way, put it to everybody. Just make sure everyone can see, because I see these are coming in, and I want you all to know that you are not alone. And so with that, here's where I want to go. Here's where I want to take us today. First is, I've got a couple questions as we just get to know each other here, as we start off. First, ever had a green account churn on you? That is abundantly obvious. You're all saying yes in the chat. You've had a green account churn. Ever had a green account churn even after doing all the QBRs that you were taught to do, that you were supposed to do? By the way, if this is resonating, say yes or give me a thumbs up in the chat. So you've had a green account churn even though you did all the QBRs. Despite all the fancy slides and the dashboards from the product team and the 12 hours of prep work that you put into the meetings, you still had them churn. Even though their NPS looked great, even though their health score looked great, all that kind of stuff, right? And is that something that feels familiar to you? So that's a question. Does this feel familiar? Are we there? Is this happening? Is this happening to us? That is, frankly, kind of a common experience for a lot of people. It's a common experience for a lot of us. So this is where we are starting today. We are starting with, hey, green accounts churn, even though we did QBRs, even though our health score said everything was okay, even though you put tons and tons of effort into this. And we're going to talk about how all that stuff comes together. So let me just introduce myself before we get started. I'm Alex Raymond, founder of Amplify, which is a professional development community for account managers and CSMs. I am also the host of the Account Management Secrets podcast, and I am the author of The Growth Department, this book right here, which is reframing the role of account managers and customer success. And I'm going to put a link right now in the chat. I'm going to put a link right now in the chat to the free audio version of the book. So you can get a free copy of that book, of the audio version of that book right there. So go ahead and download that if you want. It's going to be something I think really valuable for you going forward. So my job, as I think of it, like the role that I think of myself as having in the world, is I help account managers and CSMs get really, really good at their jobs so that you can be a partner and not just another vendor to your customers. That's what I do. Is there anyone on this call who is not interested in this and doesn't want to get really, really good at your jobs? This is your opportunity to sign off before we continue. Everyone who stays on the call, I'm going to assume that we're all interested in getting really, really good at our jobs. And so let's now jump in. When I say vendor, when I say partner, what does this mean? Probably very, very familiar to you, but it's worth a little bit of a definition right here. If you are a vendor, if your customer considers you just another vendor, here's what happens. They give you churn notice with very little time. You don't have any sort of seat at the table or access to insider information. You are probably always the last to know about stuff. Every renewal feels like a street fight. It feels like a struggle. It feels like you're just, out there bloodying your knuckles to get a renewal done. Your forecasting is totally off and variable. Like some quarters you hit it dead on, other quarters you're off by 30%, and it's very unpredictable. And to use an analogy, you probably feel like you're in the passenger seat of the relationship. I hate to say it, that's kind of a normal state of being for a lot of account managers right now. And I want us all to get out of the vendor box into the partner box. And the partner box is, now you can see risks and opportunities coming before anything big happens. You have that seat at the table. You're involved in the conversations. You are able to be proactive. You're informed. Like things are flowing for you. You're including your renewals. Your renewals are smooth and they are forecast well in advance, and your renewal forecast is accurate, and you feel like you are the driver or the guide for your customer. And this is what we're trying to do. We're getting from one to the other, and we're going to talk about one step you can make now to move in that direction. That's what we're going to be doing today. Specifically, you're going to learn 4 things during our free session here today, our free training. We're going to talk about how an account can look green right before they are out of there. We're going to talk about the single thing that predicts renewal better than any of your usage metrics or dashboards or NPS scores or what have you. We're going to talk about a single change, so a rule that we're going to implement as it relates to our QBR meetings. And finally, if you stick around to the end, I'm going to share with you an opportunity to work together. So I want you to stay for the duration of this call. I'm going to share a potential opportunity for us to work together that you're going to be very interested in. So that's what we're covering here today in the next 40 to 50 minutes or so. As we kick off, I want to very first kind of set some rules and set some scope about the role of an account manager or CSM, whatever job title you use. And the first is, I don't want you out there overcomplicating what you think your job is. When I have asked account managers over the years to tell me what they do, I get these great big long laundry lists of things that they think they're responsible for. Keeping customers happy, understanding customers' goals, working with the marketing team on such and such, liaising with the product team on so and so, doing QBRs, doing CSAT surveys, doing NPS, pulling reporting from some system, like all this kind of stuff. And for the most part, while those are well-intentioned in terms of what we think the role is, everything that we do boils down to 3 things. You were hired by your boss, by your company, to do 3 things. And those 3 things are: keep the customers that sales has spent so much time and energy bringing in. That's job number 1. Job number 2 is grow the accounts with the most potential. And number 3 is make sure there are no surprises along the way. That's it. Everything that you're doing needs to link up to one of those 3 promises. And if it doesn't, you either need to delegate it or stop doing it. And I believe in this very, very strongly. This is the definition of success for an account manager. Keep, grow, no surprises. And let me now explain, how does this relate to the topic of today? How does this relate to a QBR, quarterly business review? Everyone does these. Everyone thinks they do them. Some do them well-ish. Some do them not very well. And some are just looking at their watch trying to think, how can I get this meeting over with as fast as possible? And so we can ask ourselves, what is the purpose of a QBR, especially in this context? Why do we do QBRs? And if you have an idea or inspiration, pop it in the chat. What's the purpose of a QBR? Why are we doing these things? I'm going to tell you that, so the answers that I often hear are, the purpose of a QBR is to align with a customer, and it's to understand their goals and needs, and it's to get feedback on our performance, and it's to show our product roadmap and all this kind of stuff. And people have all these ideas about what a QBR is. There's one right there, demonstrate value. And so this is, by the way, these are the right answers, right? So Mark, you gave the right answer. The right answer is demonstrate value, but it's not the full answer. In my mind, the full answer of why are we doing a QBR is the QBR is a test. The QBR is a test of the customer, and it's a test of our relationship. And at its foundation, the QBR is there to answer one very important question. is this customer going to renew? Like that's basically it. Because all the things that we're doing, relationship mapping and finding value and talking about their goals and all that stuff, all is in service of this question. Is the account going to renew? And once you understand that, you can approach these meetings in a different way. And probably what you're going to find is you need a completely different way to think about and execute your QBRs. So the QBR is a test. We're testing the customer's commitment, their willingness to continue with us. We're also testing our ability to get the customer to where they want to go. And so that's a really powerful frame that I want you to be thinking about. The QBR is a test. The main thing we need to answer is this going to renew? And further on, you're going to hear throughout this program today how you can change your approach and change what you're doing in the QBR to more effectively answer that question. So let me give you an example. On my show, Account Management Secrets, Anthony DeShazor, former SVP of Customer Success at Givelify, came on, and he talked about his process. You'll notice that he uses EBR, Executive Business Review, instead of QBR. It doesn't matter. People call these meetings different things. But he had a process where not everybody got one of his meetings, so you had to sort of qualify for it. And he knew, like literally down to a science, as he says, almost binary, if a customer went through the EBR process, if a customer had an EBR, he was not going to lose them. Like it was, it's like a computer, it's like an equation. Like if EBR is checked, then the customer is going to stick around. And that is the kind of confidence that I want you to be having with your process. When you think about QBRs in the right way, when you think about these meetings, when you think about how to engage with your customers in this way, you're going to restructure how you approach them. You're going to think about them differently. You're going to have your teams do things differently, and you're going to get different results, just like Anthony is getting here. And it all comes down to how we think about and how we approach the QBR. Nothing we talk about today is going to be about your slides or the agenda or what font you should be using or your presentation skills or anything like that. Everything that we do at Amplify, everything that I teach, my entire focus is on helping you get really, really good at your jobs. That starts at the mindset, behavior, and competency levels, right? So that's where this change happens, and that's what we're going to be getting into here today. So it's going to be fun. Here are 5 things that your QBR has got to deliver to you. So when you leave a business review, you should have the answers to these. Maybe you're not going to get them all in a single meeting, but if you do multiple meetings over the course of 6 months, 12 months, whatever, you want to be aiming for this. The priority, the position, the economic support, structural risk, and the decision path. Do I have that stuff? And do we know, is this problem still top of mind for our customers? Do they still believe that we are a meaningful part of the solution? Do we understand how budgets get allocated and controlled? Are there any kind of structural risks? Do we know timelines and the mechanics for how decisions get made? And when you consider, like I was saying, that the QBR is a test, this is the kind of things that you want to be answering. You want to be sitting there saying, hey, how do I get this information? And it's one thing for me to put these up on the slide and say, here's 5 things you need to know. Great, wonderful. It's a whole other art to get a customer to reveal these to you and to learn, how do I talk to the customer like this? How do I make this so that it's not like an interrogation? I'm not just like qualifying them the entire time, or I'm not running them through a sequence. There's an art to that, and really important for you to not only know what you want to get out of the meeting, but also how you behave in it, so that you build trust and you become a partner. Because a vendor would just walk in with a checklist trying to fill this stuff out. A partner is going to have a much more sophisticated ability to engage their client and to get this information from them. So this is all as a means of showing you what the QBR ought to be doing for you. And I'm doing this with the understanding that we're often not there, right? You're probably not there yet. you're not satisfied with the results, totally fine. We can start to fix that. And here's the issue. The old school QBR is simply not something that's effective anymore. And the old school QBR, what I mean by that is, the one with 45 slides, and you've got dashboards and reports and usage, and you have that slide about how many support tickets your team solved over the last 90 days and the product roadmap, and you've got a picture of the new office building in New Jersey, and you have like the new award that you just got from Gartner or Forrester or whomever, and you've got the little picture and mini bio of some SVP that you just hired who used to work at NVIDIA, that kind of stuff. That's the old school QBR. You show up to an old school QBR and you've got an hour-long meeting and you think it's your job to talk for 59 minutes and 30 seconds. Those are the things that your customer is tuning out from. Those are the things that are completely, frankly, useless for you. And we're training our customers to avoid them. And we're training everyone to think that these are not effective and that therefore they actually really are part of the problem. And so, but you can still go and you can do this. And maybe you have, maybe you have recently gone and done one of these and you're like, I did the whole QBR. I still can't answer the question of are they going to renew or not? I don't know. I still don't know. And so this is the crux of the matter that we're going to be addressing here is you can do everything you've been told and taught to do. And you can have great presentation skills and a wonderful slide deck. And you can run through your agenda with precision. And you can still sit there and say, boy, I didn't learn a single thing about my customer. So what's the consequence? What happens then? Here's what happens. You run the old school QBR and you are getting very low engagement from the customer. The customer's sitting there with their arms crossed, or you're just talking to junior people and they're not engaging with you. They're not answering your questions. And everyone's kind of checking Slack under the desk or you're on a Zoom and they're hoping that you don't see that their eyes are going off to their email box. And so you're not learning anything. You don't know what's new. You're not getting any new information back from anyone. And as a result, you don't have any read. You have no read on, is the client okay? Are we going to renew? Are we not? Because you're just talking at them the whole time. And so because you have to go update your system, your CRM, after the meeting and say, what's the likelihood of renewal? You make the very logical choice of guessing. And what's the guess that you put in there? It's 70%. Everybody somehow guesses 70%. And 70% is basically you saying, I don't actually know, but I hope they renew, and so I'm going to put 70% as the answer. Right now, I dare you, open up your CRM, look at all the renewals between now and the end of the year, and count how many of them are listed at 70%. You would be amazed. So you listed 70% because you're like, I'm not sure, but I hope so. And then maybe you get it right, but more likely maybe you get it wrong, and they churn. So customer churned, you said it was 70%. This is a problem because your boss was rolling up your forecast and giving that to the CFO. And so now not only do we have a churn, but we also missed the forecast. So this is a problem. And when this happens, then you have to have that conversation with your executive who says, hey, you told us that this account was green and they churn. What's the deal? So this is kind of uncomfortable for a lot of people. And you can see the causal sequence right here. We run a meeting that is giving us no information, but we're expected to know where we stand with the client, and we have no idea. So we're just guessing, and then we get it wrong. It's a causal chain right there to do that. And the bigger problem here isn't the customer churn. I think we can all agree, customers leave. Customers leave for many, many reasons. Some are inside of your control, but also a lot are outside of your control. And the ones that are outside of your control just happen. Sometimes customers churn and you simply can't win them back. most of that you can, get on with it and recover from. But a surprise churn is the thing that makes everybody look at you and start asking questions. So it's the not seeing it coming that is the much bigger and more impactful thing here than churn. If we know something is going to happen, we can deal with it. If we don't know and we get surprised, then that puts a lot of pressure in other parts of the business, and it of course violates one of our tenets, one of our promises, which is no surprises. So this is why the old school QBRs are causing us to have breakdowns in our performance, in the performance of our forecast, the accuracy of our forecast. And so let's talk about what might some of the reasons be here. And I'd like you to, again, open up the Zoom chat here, everybody. I'm going to give you a second. Open up the Zoom chat and look back at all the QBRs you've done since the beginning of the year. So today's August 13. Think back to everything you've been doing since January 1 and give yourself a score. 1 is low, 10 is high. How engaged are your customers during the QBRs? Are they answering questions? Are they volunteering information? Is the senior person staying for the duration of the meeting? Are you having a robust, facilitated discussion? Or is this just like a pure monologue? And put your number so that everyone can see it, Elizabeth. Is everybody guessing 7 just like everyone's guessing 70% on the forecast? Are you all being too nice and optimistic yourselves, or is everyone a 7 out of 10? I don't know. We'll find out. So I want you to think about this. Like, really? Ooh, we have an 8. Okay, great. So how engaged are we in the QBRs? And let me explain to you why this matters. And I'm going to explain it by sharing some really interesting information that I got from Guy Rubin on the Account Management Secrets podcast. And let me explain how this, what this means and what the impact is. So Guy is the founder of Ebsta. He used to be with Ebsta. They got acquired by Fullcast, and his company does all this analysis of CRM data. And they look at win loss and all, they have tons and tons, like bajillions of data points. And he was able to look back and say the following: in the 2 quarters before a renewal, if your last 2 QBRs included people from the C-suite, so you had C-level people there, you are 7 times more likely to open an upsell or cross-sell opportunity with that account. So that's cool. If you get the C-suite there, you're going to renew them, and you're way more likely to do an upsell in terms of potential outcomes. Fantastic. However, if they ghost you, I'm not saying this happens to you, but if you get ghosted, right? If it happens that you invite the C-suite and they don't show up and they instead send some underling, if your meeting is with junior people only, you are 4 times more likely to churn that customer. Ugh, huge difference there. 7 times more likely to upsell or cross-sell, 4 times more likely to churn based on what? Who attends, which is another way of saying, how engaged are we? Because if we're engaged, the C-suite shows up, they participate, they get value from the meeting, they want to share information, they want to tell you context, they want to talk about their big goals, they want to do all that stuff. They're telling you, they're telegraphing to you that this is important, you're solving a big problem, I care, I want to be here, I want to be involved. Conversely, if they're bailing on you, again, not that it happened to you, but it happens sometimes, just kidding, it happens to everybody. If they bail on you, then they are signaling this is not a big enough problem for us anymore, or we have a change of strategy, or we're going to churn and I just don't feel like telling you yet. That's essentially the read on that. And we can translate this from attendance into engagement. And there are ways, and we're going to talk about some of these ways, for us to increase attendance and increase engagement so that we get the better part of these outcomes and not the negative part of these outcomes. So super fascinating information. By the way, this was stuff on the podcast. This is in episode 36. That guy, it's not even in their published studies. So this is stuff that's purely in this conversation that I had with him. So really amazing. I would encourage you to go give that one a listen. And so based on that, I want to propose like something you can do, like something you can immediately do about this. And it involves health scoring, like scoring your account. If the C-suite or the senior person, okay, it doesn't always have to be a C-level person, but the senior person that you are engaged with, the person who controls timelines and resources and budgets, isn't in your QBR, your account goes red. Do it. Maybe it makes you a little nervous to do this. Maybe you're not comfortable because once it goes red, you got to go talk to people about it. But this is the rule, because within that, there is a signal. If they're not showing up, they're essentially telegraphing to you that you're at risk. Now, you can either receive that signal while you can still go do something about it, or you just keep plowing on as you've been doing, continue to do your old school QBRs, and have the same result. So that's why I want to propose that different rule for you. And so here's what happens when we do this differently. And I'm going to introduce a new term here, the growth review. Not quarterly business review, the growth review. Different meeting, still scheduled, still strategic, still inviting senior people, still requires prep, all that stuff, but we're using a different name. And we do a growth review. I'm going to share a little bit more about that in a second. We do a growth review. We attract the right audience. They are engaged. We know how to get them to open up and start talking so that we understand how things are going. We learn where we stand. We know where we are with this account. Because of that, we're able to confidently forecast. Confidently forecast means I'm not doing a 70. I'm doing a 90 if I think they're going to renew, or I'm doing a 10 if I think they're not going to renew. And because I understand the customer better, because they've been opening up and talking to me and we've been engaging, I'm right. So I'm not guessing so much as just forecasting accurately. So I hit my forecast. Because I hit my forecast, I then unlock a bonus level, which is more trust from my boss. I get my boss off my back. They stop double checking everything that we do because you are consistent in your delivery, in your execution of your forecast. So what changed? What changed is old school QBR changed to growth review. And that's what we're going to spend some time talking about right now. Because what we want to do is we want to get out of this land of green accounts churning. We find out too late. We're the last person to find out about it. I got to go tell my boss. My boss gives me the death stare, all this kind of stuff. We want to get out of this. We want to get out of these QBRs where no one's telling us anything, where it's like talking to the wall, right? Where the customer is just sitting there and saying, when you say, hey, any questions? And like, no, I'm all set. Like, we want to get out of that, right? Like, this is not the place to be. This is vendor island, right? This is vendor land. And we need to be away from here into a place where, we have a partnership and the green accounts are actually sticking around and information is flowing in both ways and we are included in the loop and we're in the driver's seat. And, we really have that level of trust, not only with our customer, but also then with our team, right? Everyone's viewing us as a partner. That's where we want to go. And we've all tried to solve this in different ways. Like, I know that you guys are trying to solve this. You've got teams who try to solve this for you. And we do this by doing things like, well, let's go do health scoring. Let's build a really fancy health score algorithm that's going to tell us where we stand. That doesn't work. That does not work to solve this problem. How do I know? Because I asked you at the beginning if you've ever had a green account churn, and the answer was yes. So the health score thing isn't working. Same, NPS doesn't work because I could just ask the same question. Have you ever had an account with high NPS churn? Yeah, of course you have. Your fancy little AI tools probably aren't there yet. They're not doing it either for you. Neither are all the notes and data in your CRM. And the number one culprit here is these old school QBRs that you think are helping you and they're actually hurting your cause. So these tools, this is not the way to get there. This is not the way to go. The way to go is the growth review. Like the little canoe that's going to get you from one island to the other is the growth review. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what this means. And it's a different term, yes, but it's not all that drastically a different meeting. That we're just approaching it with a different mindset. We've got other questions and so on. But by and large, you're going to say, oh, okay, I understand that this could be a vehicle for me to get there. And look, the growth review itself, this is the only way that you can know where you stand while you can still do something about it. So let me unpack that, okay? Where you stand. Are we okay? Is the client at risk? Is the client going to grow? Are we doing all right? That is what I mean by know where you stand. Okay. Also very important, the second part of that clause, while you can still act, while you can still do something about it. If you learn today that a customer that renews at the end of August has a massive risk, are you going to be able to save them? No, you're not. They're going to churn. If you learn today that a customer who reviews in January has a risk, can you do something about it? Yeah, in all likelihood. If you learn today that someone who renews next summer has an issue, can you do something about it? Of course you can. So while you still act is really, really important. All this leads back to the engagement that we were talking about before. So in a growth review, how is a growth review different from an old school QBR? You're getting the right people in the room for the duration of the meeting. They're there for the whole time. They're not showing up for the first 10 minutes and then looking at their watch and saying, oh, carry on without me. They're showing up, they're engaged, and they are talking because you know what questions to ask and you know how to manage and facilitate a conversation. You know how to extract and elicit information from them. You are using this to get the read on renewal, opportunity, and risk. Like that's literally what you're doing. That's why you're there. So that you have time to act and get the proposals ready and do the escalations and do the planning and do all the proactive things that you need to do to get something back on track if there's an issue. And you are no longer in this position where you're the last person to find out. So this is partner mode, right? This is partner mode. The growth review is how partners approach these important meetings. Old school QBRs are how vendors approach these meetings. That's the distinction. So let me show you what this means. I've got a couple of really, really cool examples that you're all going to like. So Josh Abdullah came on the Account Management Secrets podcast and shared really interesting conversation with me about how he does his forecasting and risk management and his whole process for his enterprise accounts. So he's at Asana. Everybody knows Asana, big company, really cool. And he basically says, look, the factor of time is incredibly important when it comes to risk management. If I know something only in a very short period of time window is very small, then I'm in trouble. If it's a quarter out, then I can probably impact churn. If it's 2 quarters out, I can definitely impact churn. If it's 3 or more, I can absolutely impact the churn and renewal risk. So the importance, I'm just sharing this, the importance of while you can still act, right? Like this is crystallizing all this stuff down for you. So while you can still act, while you can still do something about it. And then I want to share this really, really interesting story. So Jason Scott came on my podcast. He was selling IT services. And he had this $3 million account. Here's what he said. He said he was like, this account is stagnant. It's not really going anywhere. I think they're going to churn. And then he goes, I was even bored. I was even bored of these meetings. I was bored of this customer. I was bored of the QBRs. The QBRs were part of the problem, is what he says, right? So he's like, and then he had this inspiration to go see what he could do. And he's like, I think I'm losing the customer. I think the customer's leaving. But I'm going to ask for one meeting with the executive sponsor, like, senior person, and go figure out what I can do. And so you'd expect here like a real hero story, right? That he goes in and he talks to to the C-suite person and they say, "Oh yeah, you're great, man. Yeah, you're super. We love working with you." That's not exactly what happened. So Jason walks in to go visit his client, and the client says, this is a quote from the podcast: "I 100% look at you, Mr. Scott, as a vendor. You are more transactional than a strategic partner." Bah. It's like a knife in the heart, right? Like literally. So the customer is sitting there saying, you, sir, are a vendor to me, meaning I can replace you, whatever, like all this stuff. So Jason, in total keep, grow, no surprises mode, just like, he's like, fine, great. Well, then give me a shot. Give me a shot. Let's talk about your business, what's on your mind, the things that you care about, where you're trying to go, etc. It turns out that there was all this company objective about increasing productivity and so on and so forth. And they hadn't thought about Jason and his company at all to do these things, right? They thought of Jason as a purely disposable vendor. And so Jason's like, hey, let's just lay it all out. Let's talk about this stuff. So it turns out the client's like, yeah, we got this need, this need, this need. We never thought about you for this stuff. I know you can't do it. Basically like, get out of my office. And he is able to talk to the customer and to get them to understand his perspective. He's like, hey, we've worked with a lot of other customers on this. Here's the risks that come up. Here's the opportunities that exist. Here's how we've helped people overcome them. All this kind of jazz. He's there in pure partner mode, right? Like he's pure partner mindset. And by this time, the end of the meeting, client says, I've been sitting on a gold mine with this vendor, with Jason, all the time. But I had this perception that it was a limited offering, that they were limited. So Jason's going in there, changing the customer's perspective of him, what he can do, his service, his offering, and so on. And he didn't use any slides. He simply had a conversation, and it was only 45 minutes. Right? This is not a great big thing. 45-minute conversation. Because he was able to understand this customer's productivity goals and needs, he puts together a proposal. He goes back to the executive. Executive says, yes, okay, let's do it. He goes from 3 million to 7 million in a year with that single account, an account he thought he was going to lose. And by the way, do you know what he called the meeting with his customer? Like he was doing old school QBRs, and then you know what he called the meeting, and we started calling the meetings going forward? The growth roundtable. Not quite the growth review, but close enough. And here's another story. This is from one of our Amplify members, Robert Spruill. He's the VP of Account Management at Safety Chain, which is a software company, and they help food and beverage companies. And so he had a medium-sized client, 100K account, and he's talking to his customer in one of their operational meetings, and the client's like, every single year I have to go justify the 100K we're spending with you guys because everyone wants me to go use the bigger vendor, SAP. They want us to go use the big consolidated platform instead of a point solution like you guys. By the way, ever had this happen to you? Ever had someone say, oh, we're looking to consolidate vendors and we want everything to roll up to the great big platforms and so on? Like, yeah, this happens, right? This happens. And so Robert's like, great, let's figure out how to go show value to this person first and then to the executives. So they go and they pull all the spreadsheets, all the data, all this kind of stuff on what are they doing and what results are they getting and so on. And he puts all this stuff together. This is pure like keep mode, right? This is keep mode. Keep, grow, no surprise. This is keep. He's like, all right, I gotta go figure this stuff out. And so he goes and does all the analysis, and he comes back to the customer and says, all right, we can see that you have saved $6 million by working with us, right? So $6 million worth of savings. And he goes to the client and he says, $6 million, here's what you're getting. And you can see this, the client, he told me this on the podcast, or he told me this on the podcast. He can see the client like starting to smile. And the client's like, actually, it's a lot more than that. And so Robert's like, great, let's go show your boss. let's go tell your boss about all this stuff. So he starts doing these executive results review meetings. Again, it's not quite called the growth review, but it's called executive results review. 15-minute meetings with the very senior person to share this stuff. And the very senior person is like, oh yeah, we already knew all this, right? So this is like the perfect example of that Guy Rubin stat I was sharing earlier. The C-suite person is like, oh yeah, we already knew all this stuff. The junior person didn't have the context, didn't see the full picture, didn't know everything that's going on, and wasn't as open about it. The senior person was like, yeah, we love you guys. So we're gonna of course we're gonna stick with you because of the massive ROI that we're getting. So again, you get the right people in the meeting, you're having an engaged review, you're having a great conversation that helps move both parties forward. You get the wrong people in the meeting, you're just spinning your wheels. And that's the anxiety that I think a lot of us feel around QBRs. Like that's a big issue around QBRs and why they aren't working anymore. So I just want to share those examples. I got a couple more examples I'm going to share here as we continue, but I think those are so powerful on how to rethink the QBRs. And you can learn what these people did. You can learn to do your meetings in the same way. You can learn how to do that. So let's look back. Over the last 40 minutes, what have we done? Well, we talked about 3 things that maybe you weren't aware of when we started. First of all, how QBR attendance is an excellent predictor of renewal. QBR attendance and engagement. We also talked about this rule, no C-suite, boom, account goes red, that's it. And then I introduced the concept of the growth review. The growth review is a different approach to these meetings, being the only way to know where you are while you still have time to do something.